So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I'm very unaccustomed, not unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, but unaccustomed as I am to sitting down and speaking. So I'm going to try. I'm hoping that you can see me. Yes, just give me a yes.
Yes.
No, not you.
Yes, we can see you online too.
Okay. You're not just looking at my top of my head, isn't it? As you can tell, we've got a whole comedy team here today. So, okay. So this is me. My journey, I called it going home to Africa, and somehow it always gets converted into coming home to Africa. But no, I was in Europe for 21 years, and I decided to go home to Africa. So grammatically correct, I was going home to Africa when I started the journey. I am now in Africa, but that doesn't change the fact that I was going home. My journey was 20,000 kilometers over 8.5 months through 17 countries into country 18, which is Zimbabwe, because I am Zimbabwean, born and raised. And my journey was home to Zimbabwe. So a lot of people go, well, why are you in South Africa? Well, because that was after my journey. My journey is actually to Zimbabwe. And I started on the 23rd of November, 2018, 5 days before my 60th birthday. I took a ferry overnight from Barcelona to Morocco. And so you now know when my birthday is. Please send gifts and money. And I finished on the 8th of August, 2019. Literally, my whole journey, and I will repeat this often, it was serendipitous. Everything just kind of worked, and it was before COVID came. So I literally managed to finish my journey and get my Zimbabwean passport, my papers, and my car imported into Zimbabwe before COVID, which was nothing short of miraculous as well. So I did that solo, because the other thing I get asked a lot is, did you do it all on your own? And yes, I did, except for 2 weeks when my lovely niece, who is here tonight to join me, there she is, joined me for 2 weeks, and you will see from where. Am I going forward or backward? There we go. So my transport, my Bluebell, as she is called, is a 1998 Ford Transit 2-wheel drive. She's diesel, she's rear drive. And when I bought her, she had 54,000 miles on the clock. She was a community ambulance. And as you can see, when you look at her now, well, you won't, the people on the screen won't be able to, but when you look at her now, you will see that the windows are all tinted and darkened. But she was a minibus, a mini ambulance. She had a big disability lift in the back, which took 3 men and a forklift to get out, and some really horrible seats, which I also took out and replaced. And then I literally bought her in the UK because I needed a right-hand drive vehicle to import into Zimbabwe. And I then picked up all my stuff that I had, because I haven't told you this part of the story yet, but I picked up all my stuff in Luxembourg, and I headed to Barcelona, where I built the inside. So to answer the question as to why I did the journey, I did the journey, and I'm rushing through this because, you know, I've got 8.5 months to cover in like 45 minutes. So forgive me. Okay. I was unhappily married for 22 years, and I left. I decided that at 58 that I was tired of being unhappy. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I had 60 in my sights, and I was like, do I really want to be doing this any longer? So I took 35 plastic crates, a table, a chair, and a Turkish carpet, which I negotiated really well, and headed out with 500 euros in my possession, and started my life all over again. And it was at that time that I decided that over 3 months that I was packing everything and getting myself organized, I thought about what I really wanted to do. I had been in Europe, so I've lived in 6 countries on 2 continents. I've lived in Zimbabwe, South Africa, in Cape Town, UK, Portugal, and Spain, and Luxembourg and Spain. And I just had enough of Europe. I lived there for 21 years. you know, it's cold. The people are cold. The weather is cold. It's just not Africa. And I wanted to return to the warm heart of Africa, which is the sun and the people. And I just had this feeling that I had more purpose in Zimbabwe than I had in Europe. So that's why I set out. And I bought this van. So the next question is, why did you not buy a 4x4? I did not buy a 4x4 because I could not afford a 4x4. And this, she's got a higher clearance than most vehicles. She had a solid engine. She's totally mechanical. I could get in from the back into the front and drive if I felt my security was at risk at any time. Because my lovely niece over there said, why don't you get a roof tent? I was like, I am going to be 60. I am not climbing into the roof tent in the middle of the night. And I'm getting off the roof tent to go to the toilet. No, that's just not happening. Okay, so the ferry from Barcelona to Morocco was 24 hours, and it's an Italian ferry line. If you ever get the choice to take an Italian ferry, don't. It was mayhem, just complete and utter mayhem. Anyhow, so I then set off from the Barcelona to Morocco to Tangier Med, and this was my journey. 8 months solo, 2 weeks with my niece. The average temperature, I worked out the average, but it probably, because it was really cold in the north because it was winter when I left, and really cold in the south because it was winter when I arrived. So fortunately, I had a van with all my clothes in it. So I had winter and summer clothes, and, you know, like as little as possible to wear in the humidity and the heat in most of Africa. So this is Google. This, just to go back to this is Google's translation. It was only going to take me, what was it? 219 hours. I think that's a record. If anybody managed to do that, please just let me know, because that would be like amazing. Okay, so started in Morocco, and you'll notice that Morocco, and I've got here Western Sahara because it's kind of important. So Western Sahara is now called Southern Morocco, and it has been consumed, absorbed, whatever. It's been fought over by Algeria, Mauritania, and Morocco, and it now belongs to Morocco. The people in Western Sahara do not want to belong to Morocco, but this is a story that I have heard throughout many countries in Africa. The language is French and Berber and Tuareg and those sorts of things. The currency is I've put these facts here, just read them. I'm not going to go through them every time. Like them, don't like them, whatever. So my first night in Morocco, I came off the ferry. The going through the port and getting through customs was a great preparation for the rest of my journey. It took me 3 hours to get through customs. It was, again, the most chaotic border post I had ever seen, but it was great preparation for the rest of my journey. And that very first night, so the picture at the bottom there, you'll see is the Bell family. Now, I don't know if any of you are overlanders, but the Bell family are intrepid overlanders. They've been doing this for, at that time, they had been doing this for 7 years continuously with their 2 kids, who are now grown-ups. So they were teenagers, young teenagers, when they left. And they did this in I haven't got a picture of their truck, but it's I think it's a Defender. I don't know. And they built a cab, and Graham, who's sitting on the porta potty at the back there, is a huge guy. I mean, he's just huge. And his son is equally as huge. And Louisa is quite sturdily built. The poor Jessica is quite tiny. But they all sleep, all 4 of them sleep inside this truck, which was completely mind-blowing to me. I had complete luxury, just me and my van. But this was at a wild camping spot. Everybody know what wild camping is? Wild camping is just not camping in a campsite, okay? And there are very few campsites in West Africa. So this was my very, very first day, and my first, after my first night, the next morning, and I met the Bell family, who ended up playing quite a significant role, because Graham, I met them again in Namibia, and Graham actually wrote the foreword to my book, which was great, because he knew me, and he knew me on the road, and he'd done the journey. So it was a great endorsement. So Morocco, amazing. You know, this was the blue one is Chef Chouane, which is the blue city. It was wet, it was raining, it was horrible. I was feeling pretty miserable that day. I didn't see all the pretty blue buildings, and then I went to a place called Ouazin, which struck me as the green city. But architecture in Morocco, amazing. When I thought of Morocco, I thought Morocco was a desert, you know, top to bottom, but it isn't, because on the very top, it has a Mediterranean climate. And, you know, as you go further down, it just gets drier and drier and drier. So the north of the country is actually very pretty and quite green, and a beautiful lake. I stopped this little stream at the bottom corner here, at the bottom right. I actually wild camped next to that stream. And got the life frightened out of me when a guy came and asked me for matches. I was cooking food, and I had the door open, but it's Africa, you know, you just believe you're safe, and I was. This is Fez. The top left is Fez. It's the blue gate. It's the ancient gate into the old city of Fez, which is, the Medinas in Morocco are amazing, just full of scents and sounds and just beautiful. The next one at the top is, if I'm correct, Rabat, and then Hassan II Mosque, which was enormous, with the most elaborate mosaic patterns, and just incredible. It was closed. I'm not sure that I would have been allowed in even if it wasn't, but anyway, it was closed. And then the bottom right is again in Fez. I parked nearby this gate. I wild parked there while I visited the city. This is actually the Atlas Mountains. It was, you know, the thing about, I didn't go, I'm not a photographer. I didn't go on a photographic journey. I also realized very early on that every time I wanted to take a photograph, I had to move my seat back, switch off the car, take the cushion that was under my elbow out, undo the seat belt, and get out the car, take photographs. And then I had to get back in, put the cushion back, put the seat belt on, push the seat. It was going to, I would still be on the road. It was just going to take me forever. So I learned to take photographs on the go, and, you know, stop and take a photograph and go, and that sort of thing. There are not always places in Africa to stop. There are, you know, laybys are a luxury. And I just learned, so my photographs are not the best in the world, but the thing about photographing Africa is it's almost impossible to capture the breadth and the magnificence of the landscape. So this is just some photographs that I took on my way into the Atlas Mountains, which I thought I would never be in. Food, of course, in Morocco is delightful and varied. And the top one was tea with mint tea. The bottom one on the right was a breakfast with oil. Everything is served with oil, olive oil, and a sort of a porridge and a tagine, and most amazing fruits and vegetables. Again, as you went south, suddenly there were oases of palm trees. The picture in the middle, I stopped. I just suddenly realized this vast empty landscape, and I put Bluebell in the middle there because she was literally like a beacon in the landscape. And then the bottom picture is the sand blowing, because of course I'm going south. The Sahara is on my left, and the sand was blowing across the road onto the ocean. And I could see the continental shelf. The continental shelf is actually really quite high, and you could see the Atlantic Ocean. Not too close, thank God, because I felt like I was going to blow over the road. But the sand, driving into the sand, into the wind and the sand was quite hectic. And everything got covered in sand, just every single orifice. And then, of course, I'm in a two-wheel drive. We met sand. This was Christmas Day, in the middle of nowhere. And suddenly, and I had, you know, sand is like water. You dig it out and it just goes back inside again. So suddenly this 4x4 comes past, and I jump out my car, I'm waving at people because I hadn't been successful. And these people reversed 10 minutes, pulled me out, and they were Basque, and they were like, come to the campsite. I went, no, I'm going back that way. So that was my first instance of what I came to call Africa roadside assistance. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you give it. And it never failed. So that was the first time I got it. This is sort of just a panorama photograph of just how vast and empty. It's not empty. When you look at the minutiae, there's lots of little plants and all sorts of things, but it is vast. And then I was in Mauritania. So it's called the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, and it's dry. It's just dry, and at the border, I ended up with a fixer. These two guys were from Portugal. So I almost got thrown out of the immigration office because I was laughing with these guys, and I have a very loud laugh. So, and one of the officials gave me a very stern warning. So anyway, so I tried the wraparound thing because the sand literally gets in your eyes, it gets in your ears, it gets up your nose, it gets in every single crevice and orifice that you've got. And I lasted about 10 minutes because I just exploded with heat. The bottom photograph is me parking at a police station in a town called Shami. It was inside their compound walls, but you can see that the compound walls don't actually like close. So anyway, I was in the police station and it was safe. And the guards were sleeping in the guard room. Like I stopped and I went, can I, because it was getting dark and I'd spent too much time, and they were sleeping in the guard room. I was like, sorry to disturb you, but can I park here? So this is number 2, Africa roadside assistance, San. San and I and Bluebell, not big friends. On the very corner there, you'll see a black kind of car on this edge here. Got stuck in sand. There are more diversions to roads than roads. So I got stuck in sand, and I came around the van to have a look at what the damage would be, and hadn't seen anybody else on the roads. And this old Mercedes comes and stops. It was in like a 1980 or late 70s kind of Mercedes. And out of it pour all these men. And they all start walking across that sand, all that sand towards me, which is a little bit kind of bumpy. And I stood there looking at them thinking, this can either go incredibly right or it can go incredibly wrong. So I did what I did through pretty much most of Africa, was I just attacked with kindness. So I just went, bonjour, merci, bonjour, which is hello, thank you. And the guy came across to me and he said, 10 euros and we'll push you out. And I was like, deal. So they pushed me out. And while I was taking this photograph, this guy who was not going to push, he was like, I am not pushing. And he was just standing there, and I kept going. And he was like, the more I told him to get out of the way, the more he kind of took the pose. So eventually I thought, I'm going to miss this photograph. I just took the photograph. And it ended up like being the best photograph of my whole journey, really. So as I left Mauritania, and I was literally in Mauritania 3 days, so I didn't really spend a lot of time there. As a woman, you just don't exist. As an infidel woman, you just don't exist there. They were very kind and courteous, but just that thing where they won't shake hands with you or kind of acknowledge you unless they absolutely have to. But as I came to Senegal, the Senegal River suddenly came, and suddenly for the first time in almost a week, I saw green, which my eyes just drank in, and thousands of flamingos on the waterways, which was just, and I parked there. And the best thing of all was I could smell sub-Saharan Africa, because I'd been in this dry desert landscape, and people say, what does that smell? I don't know, I can't even describe it. It's like a rich, earthy kind of smell that just, I can't even describe it. It was just, I just stood there and I went, this is Africa. I know this. I can smell this. I just know this. And so I came into Senegal. which of course was African, Black African people. And I was also, again, I'm at home here. I understand and I recognize, but I had a little bit of problem with the Muslim men, with the Arabic men, not Muslim men, Arabic men, because I learned three things. See no evil, speak no evil. And what was it? I didn't, if you don't look at them, speak to them or acknowledge them in any way, because otherwise they'll hound you. Like, as a woman, I was 60, go away. That was polite. So Senegal, beautiful on the Senegal River, and I got stuck on a curb. I had a big story. But here we go again. Some guy came, helped me. A bit more to it than that. But when I was in Dakar, I had to go into Dakar to get my visa for Côte d'Ivoire, no, for Guinea. And while the Black Civilizations Museum had only opened a month before. So I went along to have a look, and it was very interesting. It could have been a lot better, but I think it's a magnificent start to trying to capture the Black civilizations of Africa. So it was just very beautifully done. And the art that they had displayed as well. I mean, they had artifacts. Obviously, most of the artifacts are still in Africa, in Europe and America, but they did have some beautiful artifacts. I walked into the exhaust of a motorbike and burnt my leg really badly. And I went to the hospital and I was very rudely treated for 3 hours because I didn't speak enough French or the local language. So I eventually told them where to stick it and I left. And I thought, I'm going to go to the Gambia because at least there everybody speaks English and I don't have to deal with this language nonsense. And I can take care of the wound myself if I just get time to stop. And I had to stop because it was already seeping and it was really horrible. I left Dakar really late. I got stuck in loads and loads of traffic. So it was dark and I tried not to drive when it was dark, but it was dark and I found this church and I heard people singing and I saw this little alcove there and I was like, that's my parking for the night. So that's where I parked for the night. Nobody disturbed me, nobody bothered me, and I carried on the next morning. I had 2 ferry crossings in one day. This was the first ferry crossing. The ferry was broken. So there were 3 ferries, only one of them was working. So anyway, I waited for the ferry and you can see the bottom photograph, the stuff on top of the trucks is like almost the size of the trucks. And there's a photograph of me with a very pissed off look on my, a very unpleasant look on my face because first of all, you can see Bluebell is usually, she's quite tall, so she's usually overshadowing every other vehicle, but not here. I mean, that's a truck behind me, a van behind me with just stuff all over it. And next to me, all around me, I thought if any of them topple over, I'm done. But the reason for the look on my face is I had a life jacket on. I was still in European mode. So I got out of my car, locked my car and stood out. And a guy came up to me and handed me a life jacket, which being in European health and safety mode, I duly donned. And while I was on the boat, I suddenly realized that I was the only person who had a life jacket on. And there were a whole pile, because I'd seen a whole pile of them in the corner. So I was like, how is it that I'm the only person here with a life jacket on? Okay. So then I went to the Gambia. The Gambia sits entirely inside Senegal. And it skirts around the Gambia River. It's English speaking, which was a real joy for me. And I started the first sighting of baobabs, which was, just again reminded me of home. This was my campsite. There are very, very few proper campsites, but this one was run by Germans, so it was precision. And it was great. I managed to use, my nephew had taught me a colloidal silver cure, and I'd managed to in 5 days actually get my leg to heal and be on my way. The bottom thing is it's breakfast. I can only drink black coffee, but it's a baguette with like a bean mixture with chili sauce on it, because it's as hot as Hades in West Africa, and everything is spicy. I don't know why. Just because you're not hot enough, you need to eat it as well. One of the treats I took myself on was to go on the mangroves on one of the tributaries into the Gambia River. And it was in a dugout. You can see there's a whole piece missing there, which did worry me initially, but it was very old, but it was just sublime. It was so, so wonderful. And the mangroves looked like plants that are just going to walk out of the river at any given time. The bird life was magnificent. Alim was my what do you call a guy who paddles a boat? Anyway, he was just great. And we just cruised, and it was so quiet, apart from, of course, the bird life. And what was even better was when we came back to camp, behind me, the moon was rising, and in front of me, the sun was setting. It was a full moon rising and the sun setting, and it was just incredibly magical. It was a moment that I can never forget. And then I came to Guinea. I did have some problems at the border with the guy who, I can't tell you the whole story right now because it's too long, but it's very peculiar. But I did get through. What I tried to do was I had to go from the Gambia out of the Gambia into Senegal, out of Senegal into Guinea. And I, being stupid, bold, brave, I decided I would do all of that in one day, as you do. And I almost did, but at about 6 minutes past 6, I had an altercation with the guy at the border, so I didn't. But I did sleep in no man's land for most of the night. So Guinea, incredibly beautiful country, incredibly bad roads, incredibly poor, but in parts of it very beautiful. So just outside, so I came in about where it says Mali, just before there. And then I went across to, you see Boke. So it says Kasmar, and then before that, it says Boke, B-O-K-E with an accent on the E. And I took a road that I didn't know at the time was actually a dirt road, which I fondly came to call Hell's Highway, because it was 200 kilometers of red dust road. And it was in just grueling shape. It was, I can't even begin to tell you how bad this road was. And I kept overheating, and I was going very slowly, and there were just so many different kinds of surface. The rivers were beautiful, incredible. By the time I got to Boke, it was, I stopped, some people put me in touch with people, I stopped at an old Portuguese slave place where they kept slaves so that they could then take them on and sell them on, which, and this was now a museum in incredibly bad shape with some very interesting artifacts. I met some amazing people. This lady had the first lady had a pension, which is where I stayed, and they were incredibly kind to me. The two bikers, the guy at the back is a deaf biker who actually has driven around Africa 5 times. The guy at the bottom was Zimbabwe, and he couldn't believe there was another Zimbabwean in Conakry. He works at one of the mines. And then a Canadian woman who lives in France, who was in Guinea doing research on female genital mutilation, because it's a very big problem there still. Fresh fruit aplenty. Conakry, crazy city. And by this time I had already done all sorts of currencies.
So how did you organize?
Can we do questions later? Because otherwise I've got to do so please keep the questions and I'll answer them, I promise. Beautiful landscape, and I started to come into tropical rainforest. Lots of grass, huts with grass roofs. And I didn't know that bamboo was indigenous to Africa. But this was over the road. It was just through a bamboo patch, and it's like what they call a bamboo cathedral. And the cars were just laden. I saw a cow tied up in the boot of a car. It was like a big one of those ones with big horns. It was incredible. I went to see chimpanzees in their natural state, and that was incredible. So these were as you look at the photograph on the left were my guides, and the other two guys were trackers. An incredible experience to see them. Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire, noticeably richer. So I went, if you look at the map, I went from Man, where you see MAN on the left, kind of on the left there. And I went across to Yamoussoukro, which is the capital, down to Abidjan, and then along the coast to Ghana. Beautiful rainforest in parts, but then it very quickly gives way to plantations. There was a strange thing. Outside villages, they would have cemeteries, like literally outside just about every single village. Very elaborate, very ornate cemeteries. And they love to paint their trucks. And I photographed this one because it was just so unusual. There was a white guy with scorp on the back of the truck. I just couldn't understand where they got that from. But in Yamoussoukro is the capital. There is a replica of the Vatican, and it's apparently the largest church in Christian church in the world, apparently.
Same scale.
Sorry?
Same scale.
No, apparently smaller, but I'm not exactly sure of the details. I didn't go in. I didn't think it was worth the money to go and see an empty space. And I was on a budget. As I drove through Abidjan, an incredible city, very modern. It was difficult to take photographs because lots of traffic. And any of the photographs I took just really didn't make any difference. I went then to the old colonial capital of Côte d'Ivoire, which is called Grand Bassam, and just beautiful old French colonial buildings just falling apart. One of the ones that wasn't falling apart was the governor's building, which was a costume museum, which was very interesting, I must say. Ghana, I came in at the bottom. I went along Cape Coast into Accra. Then I went up to Kumasi, up to the left, where there is nothing, and then across to Tamale, and then down the other side of the Volta. That picture doesn't actually look quite right, but anyhow. And then somewhere up from Ho, I turned into Togo. I took 5 days on the beach. I was exhausted. The heat was killing me. I'd been driving the most terrible roads, and I decided, you'll see the photographs, the sky is gray, and that's because it's called the Harmattan. It blows dust, fine particles of dust from the Sahara over the Guinea, the Bay of Guinea, and it's hot and humid, and then the Harmattan, which just oppresses everything. So it's like death. There's no air, but it was beautiful. So I had this lovely private beach to myself in a parking lot at a lodge. And then I found Johannesburg House. So if you look very closely, this place is called Johannesburg House. I went to the village. I walked along the beach like everybody else does, because that's like the highway. The students go to school on the beach, the people go to work on the beach, and I followed the beach to the village to get bread and eggs and data, and then saw Johannesburg House. And this bridge is called the Dancing Bridge, because it's kind of like planks of wood that have all been strapped together. And these guys actually came up behind me and frightened the life out of me, because as I was like standing on this, and I was like, okay, this is okay. And then they came up behind me, and they just I like levitated off because everything bounced as they, so I was like, guys, you can go. I'll follow you just now. It's quite something. The boats go under this bridge, so it kind of goes up in the middle, and the boats go under this bridge into the lagoon for safe haven. Along the Cape Coast, just some beautiful flavors and murals. Accra, beautiful city, lovely entrance, very grand. Once again, a city of great contrasts with very poor and very rich. And I had I parked outside a guest house, and I got a mechanic. He came and changed my filters and fixed my diff seal thing, whatever. And, you know, Africa mechanics. Okay. I moved on. I moved up. I went to a place called Lake Bosomtwi. Lake Bosomtwi is a meteor lake. So when you look at it on the map, you'll see that it is a perfectly round lake. Again, I just stopped. I went there to have a look. Beautiful. Some of the only remaining tropical rainforest in Ghana. Ghana has only 4% of its rainforest left.
4%.
Yeah. So, and they love burning bush. They love burning bush. It was like the whole country was covered in smoke. Anyway, I went to a place called Mole Game Reserve. If you ever go to Ghana, I highly recommend you avoid it. I saw 3 bull elephants, a few antelope, and some baboons. Oh, and some warthogs. And I knew more than the guide. So trust me, not worth it. So I came down the other side of the Volta. So I came down the east side of the Volta, and I'd had all these beautiful roads. And I was telling all the Ghanaian people, what amazing roads you have. You have roads everywhere, and no roads. I took to having a bandana, which I used to wet, and then if you swirl it around and I put it in my neck, it would cool me down for all of like 10 minutes. And eventually I started wearing, on the dust road, I started wearing it on my face because the dust was killing me. As I turned towards Togo, I came across these gentlemen on the road, and I was like, wow. I stopped. I was admiring them, you know, sort of a little bit leeringly, because they just looked so amazingly majestic in their togas. And the guy came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Man, you guys look so amazing. Can I take a photograph?" And he was like, "Who is this woman?" So he asked the others, and they all went, "Okay." And they were all village heads and chiefs who had gone to a meeting, and they were now walking home. I parked in another German precision. It was lots, you know, that, sorry if anybody's German, but the precision is, you know, do not do this and do not do that, little pieces of paper on everything that needs to be done. And this is Agomasta waterfall in the mountains there. It was beautiful, but incredibly hot. I went into Togo, sort of around just Kapalimi, Lime, and then I went to Atapakme, and then I came down to Lome. I decided there was hardly any, roads were good, there was hardly anything significant to see that I was interested in, and the heat was killing me. So I went to the beach. So this is, as you come from Ghana into Togo, it's quite mountainous and very beautiful rainforest again. And this was me on the beach. Well, I wasn't quite on the beach. I was on some hard standing because, you know me, I couldn't have gotten on the beach even if I tried. But beautiful beach, a lovely place called Cocoa Beach, where I got overlander's disease. If you don't know what overlander's disease is, look it up. And I met some French people. If anybody wants to travel and wants to earn money while they're doing so, this couple have a YouTube channel, and that's how they travel around Africa. I think at the moment they are in Kenya. And then I met a Dutch guy who I met again in Cabinda, sorry, Benin Republic. in Benin Republic, I had to get I literally just stayed at the bottom. I went to Cotonou and to Porto Novo. I had to get my Nigerian visa. So in Cotonou, although Cotonou is not the capital, in Cotonou, all the embassies are there and whatever have you. Incredible. But right outside, you see this hedge, right outside all these beautiful buildings, there's a sign telling you not to defecate in the hedge. Interesting. The most amazing place I found in Africa. Okay, sorry, I'm running out of time. So we can end where?
Keep on going.
Can I keep going?
Yep.
So Songhai was an amazing place. If you want to find a really incredible eco place, it's songhai.org, where I also met the kings of Nigeria. And some of the kings were visiting their counterparts in Benin. Then in Nigeria, I had to go through to Lagos. I went through Benin City and then made my way up somewhere between Yola and the other. Okay. And this what you complain about potholes. Okay. No more complaining about potholes. Okay. Lagos. So the road to Lagos was 90 kilometers. Took us 4 hours. I had teamed up with an American couple who were in a big truck, and I'll tell you why. So Lagos, beautiful, rich city, incredibly poor city, right on the waterway. I teamed up with the couple on the left because they had, at the bottom, you'll see this big Ford 550, and I didn't know whether I could make it through the border between Nigeria and Cameroon in my little van without being towed, because there is nothing there. There's just a GPS track. I went to Benin City, which used to be an incredible historical place, which regrettably it is no longer. I lost my clutch near Enugu, and I got taken into the tower in the compound at Radio Nigeria, where they organized a mechanic who right there fixed my clutch. See, African mechanics. This guy wanted me to marry his brother. And there's a story about Kidnap Alley, which we don't have time for, and a police escort for the two of us with 14 armed men. This was the road or the track between Nigeria and Cameroon. Incredibly beautiful, pristine, but the road, incredibly shocking. And I've always thought if I can do any road as long as I see other cars, but this vehicle on the road there is a 6x6. This is the road conditions. And then I got to the Cameroon border, and I thought, now I'm done. And I got to Cameroon. So somewhere near Banyo, you'll see it says Banyo kind of in that little hook there. And that's where we came in. And I thought I was okay. I thought I have done the most incredibly bad part of this journey. Had overlanders telling me I was amazing. And then there were 3 rivers to cross without bridges. Just one of them had a weir. So that was muddy and horrible. I said goodbye to my friends, and they were on their way. And then I hit another bridge where all the planks are loose, and these guys had to help me get over it. Cameroon, beautiful. They are very, very Anglophobic. I went to see King Njoya, his palace. He is the ancestor. This man here actually is one of the people who first created a written language in Africa. It was very interesting. I parked at a monastery for 3 days and went off the grid, and everybody thought I died in Cameroon. I met some expats. One of them is an ex-Zimbabwean guy, and these guys can assuredly drink. Like, I had to leave because I was in serious danger of my life. A guy had a motor. I saw a guy flipped by a truck as a truck went past him so fast on a motorbike. He was on a motorbike and he flipped. I ended up taking him to hospital. And this guy here gets a place because he's the only guy, police checkpoint, where somebody actually offered me a drink instead of asking me for something. And then Gabon. So I came in by Bitam at the top, then Oyem, and made my way through to Libreville. I did pass the equator 3 times, but only found it once. The trucks at the bottom are taking Chinese companies taking mahogany out of the rainforest. This guy helped me fix my indicator light. I got into trouble with the police. I always seem to be in trouble with the police. And they literally put pieces together and molded. It was just fantastic. And then my niece joined me. So then there were 2 of us, 3 of us really and I found the equator. And this is bamboo. At the top, it's bamboo, just beautiful waves of bamboo. So then I found the equator, passed by Albert Schweitzer's museum in Lamberen. And then we left dust behind us and found mud. Passing the truck at the bottom, this guy at the top here actually pulled me through, appeared, we were just like, who is this guy? He appeared and pulled me through the most incredible mud pools. I wouldn't have made it without him. This truck, I had to do a maneuver where I had to go through and around and past him, and I slid in the mud and can opened the side of my car. And then we got into the Republic of Congo, I don't even know where, because it doesn't say here, but in the middle there somewhere, and made our way down to Ponhua. Ursula putting the honored sticker on the van, and we parked that night actually next to the guy. We found out next to the guy who was in front of us, and amongst gangs of goats, my worst, pygmy goats on the roads. Ursula was going, oh, look at the lovely goats. I was like, get away. Then we
scene from hell, I think I call.
So this was you took a fantastic photograph of us of the van where we had it fixed next to a church where they couldn't sing to save their lives, which is unusual for Africa. I broken a spring as well and sheared the bolts off this whatever thing it is there. We had an Africa welding job done. It cost me 50 euros, but it closed the hole and meant we could open the doors. And we parked for the night in a hotel that charged by the hour. Not us. It didn't charge us by the hour. It charged other people by the hour.
We had curtains open in the room. They asked us to move rooms.
Yeah, we were not allowed to see anybody outside. And then as we left Republic of Congo, we took a break at the beach before we came to Cabinda. So Cabinda is at the top. And then there's the Democratic Republic of Congo, and then there's main Angola, and Cabinda belongs to Angola. It's where all the oil is, although there was no fuel available in Cabinda. We stayed at a monastery, at a church monastery kind of place. We met Michel again, who I met in Benin, in Togo, and then I had to say goodbye to Ursula because she could get through the DRC, but I couldn't. They wouldn't recognize my visa from Benin. So I was stuck. I was stuck there for a week until Ursula did some magic, and we eventually managed our way through. I eventually managed to get through. And then I drove all day into the night to get from the border with Cabinda to Matadi. On Red Dust Road. The building at the bottom is Stanley's Baobab. Apparently Stanley slept inside this Baobab, notable. And this is you can kind of see at the bottom, the Congo River, very hazy. The heat is intense. The Congo River and this beautiful view where I was staying with some lovely people who took me in. Angola, absolutely beautiful country. I met these people again, overlanders that we crossed paths, stayed on the beach there for a couple of days. And this picture doesn't really do it justice, but forests of baobabs, just incredibly beautiful. Stopped in Luanda. Again, a beautiful city, really beautiful. Got a lot of crime, but very beautiful city. And I went to see the second largest waterfall in Africa called Calendula Falls, where I was magnificently hosted. I stopped. So the story here is the guy who isn't in this photograph. I met a French guy in Benin, and he was on a motorbike. And I met him again here at this beach bar. I parked outside the beach bar. All the places I parked, incredible. And anyway, he saw me, so we hugged, we said hi, and he said to me, I cannot believe that you drove this piece of shit car all the way through Africa. And I was like, thanks, Gautier. And then Namibia, what can I tell you? I went to see the Himba people. I got stuck on a teeny weeny ridge. It's ridiculous. She hasn't got the power of anything. Anyway, that was my last Africa roadside assistance. I then met loads of old friends, new friends. The Bells came again. The guy in the middle actually brought spare parts for me from the UK, including shock absorbers, which are not light things to do, but he just brought all the stuff for me, didn't charge me a cent. I mean, I paid for the spares, but didn't charge me anything else. And Zimbabweans selling honey. I think this is called, what is it, Waterval? What's that? Yeah, Waterberg, that's it, Waterberg. Beautiful. Went through the Caprivi Strip, met these lovely people at Shamvura camp, and then my first sighting of the Zambezi. A very brief ride through Botswana, obviously elephants. And then I came to Zimbabwe, where the population are the nicest, the climate is the best. Don't know which currency to tell you we use, because we use all of them, and the landscape is the most beautiful. I just going to mention very briefly, one of the things I do in Zimbabwe is I raise funds for girls' education. 67% of girls are not in high school, trying to prevent early marriage, prostitution, trafficking, and a whole bunch of other things, and of course, poverty. The government school fees per term in 2019 were 320 Rand, and in 2022, just as I left, they are 2,300 Rand. Not money that our local population can afford. So if you're interested, my books are at the back, if I can mention. And I use that money, the proceeds from that go to my girls' education fund. And then I was home, and I live in Bulawayo, and that is where I'm going to return to when I leave South Africa. Thank you very much. Questions? Anybody want questions? Nobody wants questions. Everybody wants to go home. We have at least one. Everybody wants to go home.
I just had a quick question.
Yes.
When you left Morocco, did you have a plan of how to go south? I mean, did you have a map in front of you going, right, this is how I'm going to do it? Or did you just face south?
Just for the guys online, the question is, when you left Morocco, was there a plan?
You know, you kind of have to have an overall plan, but you also have to be flexible enough to adapt to whatever lies ahead. And I checked all sorts of apps and forums and groups and WhatsApp groups, because I've joined, while you're on the road, there's a lot of support. And everybody has a different opinion about what's a good road and what's a bad road. So, and things change. So you kind of have to keep. So my plan was, I checked the roads literally daily. Every night I'd spend hours every morning. And then I would have a plan for like a few days hence. And I knew the general direction that I was going in, but I didn't always know the exact road. But I used, so if you're interested, I used an app called Maps.me. Maps.me is you download the country and then you can drive offline, which is invaluable, because Google is completely and utterly useless in Africa. Does that answer the question?
And why the west side, not the eastern side of Africa?
Why the western side and not the eastern side? The western side, because I didn't know any better. It was closer from Barcelona to get to Morocco. And I'd heard that Egypt was like a big hassle to get your vehicle into. So I thought, I'll just do West Africa. Why not? I would say ignorance got me a long way. Anybody else?
Yeah, what about the notorious bribery and corruption?
Oh, the notorious bribery and corruption. There's plenty of it. I just didn't participate in it.
So you managed to just skirt it. Did they just believe you didn't have money, or?
Well, firstly, I'd always told them I didn't have money. You know, I played the crazy old white woman very well, and I didn't speak French very well. So they would say to me, and I understood very often what they wanted. They would say to me, you know, have you got something for me? And I'd be like, oh, you need some more papers? You know, and I'd be like, you want this paper? You know, and they'd be like, she just doesn't get it, you know, so they'd be like, just go, you know. So, and I had some altercations at borders where I sometimes outwitted and while I was writing the book, because I wrote the book during COVID, I was writing the book, I was like, maybe if I'd offered a bribe, I would have gotten out of this situation, but I never did. You know, I'm a very obstinate, stubborn person. My niece and I we had a guy who took our passports and wouldn't give them back to us. So we said, okay, let's go have lunch. You know, so we opened the van and we had lunch. Yeah, it's just, yeah, if you know, I always had the security of knowing that I had my van and I had water and supplies and I could stay there for at least a few days without any bother, you know. So I would just sit back and relax and let them carry on, or I'd switch off the engine and go, and then they'd usually cars piling up behind me, and then they'd be like, no, let's get somebody who actually knows what the hell we're asking for, you know, get rid of it. So yeah, so it does exist. You just don't have to participate in it.
Was there a time in this trip that you really felt at risk?
Was there a time that I felt really at risk? No. Sorry, I know it's a disappointment. A lot of people go, really? She must be lying. No, but I get asked all that all the time. No, but I also wasn't foolish with my safety and security. You know, I had alarms on my windows. I always drove with my doors locked. I tried to sleep in compounds where I possibly could.
You didn't drive at night.
What's that?
You didn't drive at night, as you said.
And I tried not to drive at night. It's just hazardous driving at night.
Yeah.
There are donkeys, there are goats, there are people, there are, you know, just not a great idea.
So did you know where you were staying the night before? Sorry,
No problem.
Chris. Did you have a sense of where you were going to stay that night?
I had.
There's this compound involved, there's this monastery or
Did I have an indication of where I would stay? I would generally have a plan A, B, and C, because I never knew how many times I would get stopped on the road for police checkpoints. I didn't know what the condition of the roads were. I didn't know any of those things. So I would kind of go, if I can get there, then I'll stop there. And if I can, you know, so I would check as I usually have an idea, but I would check sometimes and sometimes I had no idea, you know, and I just look for what I could have found.
So just a final, so did you have a sat phone and were you phoning
No.
ahead?
No.
How were you knowing where you were going? How did you know those 3 points? A, B, and C?
I used so how did I know the points that I was going to use? I used an app called Overlander, where overlanders share information, and you know, you'd have some idea of borders, visas, places, all that sort of stuff. So I would generally use that, and otherwise I would look at Google Maps and see what was in the area. And not more than once I went to a hotel and I said, I can't afford to stay in a room, because they'd often want me to stay in a room, and I'd say, I can't afford that, I sleep in my van. And then I'd do a negotiation with them to stay in their compound.
Okay. Guys, we're going to do 2 more questions here, and then we'll see what's online. And then for us that are here, we can go down to dinner and chat further.
Question? No?
No? You good?
Actually, you know, the question I just want to ask is that I know you left it a little. Did you get funding or backup from anybody, or were you running this?
Did I get funding or backup? I had probably half the money that I needed to go, and I got some work along the way, because I do websites. I used to do websites. I don't do anymore, but I used to do websites. So I got some work on the way, which meant I had to find Wi-Fi. And and then when I ran out of money, kind of just before Nigeria, people sent me money.
Nice, lovely. And you also obviously were going to write your book.
Well,
So did
no,
you
no,
then
not obviously. I didn't know obviously that I was going to write my book until I got to COVID and knew that I would go write the book. So, and people wanted me to write the book. So, yeah.
And what was that number ultimately?
What number?
How much did it cost?
How much did it cost? I'm really bad at my niece is the accountant. She wasn't with me. So I think it's about 8,000 euros. But I live very modestly, and I would shop on the side of the road, and I would, you know, I didn't need for much. Fuel and accommodation. Fuel was my biggest expense, and visas. Fuel and visas and temporary import permits were my biggest expense.
That's the most amazing thing, is to eat on markets, because the minute you eat on markets, you eat at a local cost. You don't.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah. So eating locally, local produce was a big cost saver for me.
There was just another logistical question about fuel. Did you ever have trouble getting fuel?
Did I have trouble getting fuel? Yes. In Guinea, I did. The only thing that I did fall prey to was a bait and switch. So they kind of told me that I had to go to the black market to get fuel. I only wanted 20 liters because I didn't like the idea, and I thought, if I only get 20 liters, it can't be too bad. You know, if the fuel isn't right or anything like that. But they didn't give me 20 liters. They gave me about 5. And that was the only time that I really kind of, because the fuel comes into the petrol stations and it just goes out into the black market. Everybody comes with their chibgoobs, their bottles, their motorbikes, they're like all got plastic containers, the cars, everybody goes with containers, and you can find all the fuel on the side of the road in bottles.
Was this whole trip harder or easier than you expected? Was
it harder or easier than I expected? I expected nothing, because expectation is the one thing that will do you more harm. So I learned to live every day as it came. Just whatever happens, I will deal with it when it happens. I think the one thing that I learned was that if you spend a lot of time worrying about what might not happen, you're just wasting you're getting yourself stressed out and wasting a lot of energy on what you won't have to deal with anyway. I mean, I was always prepared, so prepared for whatever happened, I would deal with it when it happened.
Okay.
How much did you really know about your car?
Nothing. I knew nothing about my car. But I learned a lot. I can now talk about the center prop shaft bearings. Hi, anybody got questions online?
All right.
Oh, okay.
So
There were just a couple of questions. Michelle Kilbourne-Lowe asked, what high school were you in Zim?
Evelyn.
before we go, so what high school?
What high school? I went to Evelyn in Bulawayo.
Okay. And people say, yeah, fantastic talk. Should have been 2 talks. Should enough.
Yeah, sorry, I'm only here one talk.
Yeah. Jono wants to know where we can buy the book, and Nick says, will you do it again?
Sorry, just guys, for the guys on Zoom, I did put a message on WhatsApp that if anybody would like to buy a book, just get hold of me directly. I'll make a plan and we'll distribute the book somehow. So I've already had Hanley asking if we can make a plan. So yeah, and Hanley has asked for a signed copy. So she's front of line at the moment.
Okay, and just as a follow-up from the school one is, apparently Michelle's mom must have been a chemistry teacher. I don't know if you... at that school.
Mrs. Henderson was my teacher, my science teacher.
Okay.
So it seems like one of our SM members' mother was Dot's chemistry teacher or something of the sort.
Just wanted to find out.
Okay, let's do just 1 or 2 more and then close up for the evening.
It's done on this
There was
side.
another question that I didn't I didn't pick up, that I didn't answer. So in terms of the book is available here. Chris said that he would help sort that out. But I'm also at Melville Market on Saturday. So that's another opportunity, or on my website. But then you need to pay shipping. Okay. And there was one other question. No other question?
One other question I've just seen. Would you do it again?
Would I do it again? No. But not because I hate, I've done it. You know, I think I would love to do East Africa. I would love to experience East Africa and the comparison and the contrast. I think I know what I know now, and I don't need to know anymore. I mean, it was an amazing, wonderful experience, and I wouldn't change it for anything, but I've done it, you know, and I'm kind of that person. I've done that. I want to do something else. Yeah.